Thank you very much, and thanks for the invitation. It's a real pleasure for me to be with you this morning. First of all, I would like to congratulate very warmly Mayor Barkat for his vision. And I think the point that was made earlier about politics sometimes being at odds with business, I think this is an example where the two worlds can not only work usefully together, but cooperate in a way that actually creates jobs, creates value. And one of the big debates in our societies today is not just about job creation. The European Union has about 20 million unemployed workers. So it's not just about creating these jobs. Thankfully, the UK is a full employment economy, but it's also what kind of jobs. And as we all know, entrepreneurs innovate. Innovation brings pricing power, and pricing power also, of course, brings good jobs, innovative, value-creating jobs. But before I go through the remarks that I prepared for you today, I would like to acknowledge the legacy of a man, one of Israel's founding fathers, Shimon Peres, who passed away, as we know, very recently, but whose spirit and vision, I think, has animated Israel and contributed to the tech boom that we've seen, and is certainly represented by some of the brightest minds that we have with us from Israel here today, and welcome to London, certainly on behalf of the Stock Exchange, on behalf of the city. I would also like to thank the British and Israeli governments for their support in continuing to work hard to enhance the commercial relationship between our countries. His Excellency, the British Ambassador, is with us this morning. Do take an opportunity to speak to him. There's a lot of interesting things going on between the UK and Israel, and the two governments are working closely together to bring the business communities even closer together. It's also fitting that we're here in Camden Town this morning, which has been transformed by Teddy Sagi. And we're very happy, of course, to have his inspiring company, Playtech, listed on our very own market, on the main market of the London Stock Exchange. Our roots, perhaps, are deep. They go back, actually, to 1698. We were founded as a coffee house, perhaps the best place for technological innovation today. So that hasn't changed. But we've grown. We're a technology company ourselves. We're, in fact, an infrastructure company. And whilst I know that other markets around the world may advertise their liquidity, their innovation, many of you probably don't know that London today, and in fact a company that is owned by the London Stock Exchange, is in fact the deepest liquidity pool in the world. This year, if current trends in the first half continue, this company, the London Stock Exchange, and its clearinghouse, LCH, are going to clear almost $2 quadrillion of financial securities as well as notional instruments. 95% of the world's interest rate swaps are cleared right here in London. The biggest pool of index money, FTSE Russell, is managed out of London. $15 trillion of assets under benchmarks, of index assets, are managed under the FTSE Russell benchmark and brand, bigger than S&P, bigger than MSCI. There's a lot going on here in the UK that I think Israel and Israeli entrepreneurs deserve to discover and certainly explore more fully. Over 3,000 international companies are listed in our market, and Israel has taken its fair share over the years. We hosted, led by my very able colleague, Justine Swerling, who's here with us this morning, which I would encourage all of you to get to meet afterwards. We recently hosted our second Capital Markets Conference in Israel, a huge success, standing room only, and we're delighted to receive support from both the Prime Minister's Office, the Israeli Prime Minister's Office, and also the UK government's Department for International Trade support. We now have 28 Israeli companies listed on our market. 18 are on AIM, the world's leading international high-growth market. 76% of all the money raised in the European Union last year by high-growth companies was raised by the AIM market, 76%. That platform has raised over $125 billion of equity, long-term equity patient capital for high-growth companies and entrepreneurs. These Israeli companies on the AIM market have a total combined market cap of over $15 billion, including fast growth stars such as Fruiterom, Taptica, SafeCharge, CrossRider, Plus 500, Matomi. London will continue. There is a whole ecosystem. It's not just the London Stock Exchange, to help bring international investors additional liquidity and trading activity to Israel's listed champions. So far this year, over $5 billion in Israeli stocks has been traded on our markets, a 14% increase over the same period last year. And I'm pleased to say Playtech has been the most actively traded. Innovation also is what we're about. Multilateral trading platforms, fundraising platforms. You see our colleagues at Elite advertised as one of the co-sponsors of today's conference. The first ever platform operating on a pan-European basis, which also includes Israeli companies, designed to help private, unlisted companies not only meet investors, but raise capital, equity, as well as long-term debt. Created 3 years ago, Elite today counts 800 member companies that are doing M&A, raising private equity as well as private debt from 250 investors, some amongst the world's largest investors who care deeply about the prospects of high-growth companies and SMEs in Europe. I mentioned earlier there's almost 20 million unemployed workers in the European Union. There's in fact 23 million SMEs, more SMEs than unemployed workers, and we continue to believe, of course, that this is a key to turning around some of the underperforming parts of our European economies. But we will also continue to cater to blue chips, large companies, tech companies. Sophos, for example, one of the largest software IPOs in 2015, have enjoyed tremendous performance. In 2016, all the tech companies listed on the London Stock Exchange had a post-IPO performance of 144% gains, far outstripping either tech sectors and indices on NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. In June this year, we welcome Israeli tech IPO of Eternity Network, a provider across telecom, security, as well as data centers. Small company, they raised a little over $19 million. Their post-IPO performance in the last 6 months, in the last few months, up 32%. They've enjoyed high liquidity with turnover of over $6 million a day. These listings of small but fast-growing companies showcase London's ability to support tech companies in raising high-quality, long-term equity capital. But we've also supported the Israeli government in terms of raising finance. We'd love to host a bond for Jerusalem. Perhaps I can convince the mayor in terms of his current investment program to turn to our markets. We were deeply honored that the Israeli Ministry of Finance listed its 2.25 billion euro 10 and 20-year government bonds on the London Stock Exchange earlier this year in January. This issue was 4 times oversubscribed. This again continues to demonstrate London's commitment to supporting the funding efforts of both the private sector, but also, of course, the sovereign sector. I mentioned Elite earlier. Elite's Club Deal, which is a capital raising program designed specifically for high-growth private companies looking to remain private, at least for the time being, counts many leading Israeli companies as part of its membership. eToro, in fact, was the first Israeli company to join Elite, followed by many others like B-Lenders or Showbox, for example. 5 more Israeli companies, in fact, joined in the last cohort: GeekApps, Teva Motors, iCapital, Initel, company from Jerusalem, and Motionize, who are in fact with us here this morning. And I would certainly encourage any of you interested in raising capital and meeting global investors, from family offices to some of the world's largest investors, whilst maintaining your private governance and private structure, to get in touch with me or my colleague Justine and inquire about Elite. I would like to thank again the organizer of Kälkälist, the conference, as well as, of course, all our friends, co-sponsors, Bank Leumi and many others, for inviting us and giving me this opportunity to again remind you that you have friends in London, friends in the city, that it's a good place to do business, it's a good place to invest, it's a good place to develop technological innovation with the superb UK university environment, as you know, not just in software, biotech, and it's not just Oxford, Cambridge, Manchester, and many of the other very large and successful world-class universities in the United Kingdom promoting scientific research. But you also got friends right here in the City of London to help you raise that long-term patient capital, which is integral and critical to the success of high-growth companies. I want to congratulate all of you this morning for being here and look forward to speak to many of you later on. Thank you.